Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in to our live podcast. It looks like we are officially live on Sunday, April 7th.
This may be the smoothest start's ever gone.
It is far and away the best that it's ever been.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that I'm still not going to whine and bellyache.
Tragedy can strike at any time.
That's right. So
real or manufactured.
Mrs. Texas Toast is with us as always, and she has a microphone and knows how to use it. She also has, she's got, what is it called when you are the moderator? She has moderation ability.
I'm a moderator.
And knows how to use it. That's right. How many other moderators do we have?
Terry, Gigi, and G.
Right on. Well, maybe Terry will grace us with his presence and say hey.
Keep some of the slackers straight.
Hey to everyone who
show up.
We have very few slackers.
It's true.
We don't have any scrubs who watch this podcast. Maybe as the channel grows,
I don't want no scrub.
Maybe we should mute Carrie Ann's microphone. So thanks again for tuning in, everybody. This is going to be, for those of you who haven't watched, this is going to be a weekly thing every Sunday. Unless otherwise directed, we're going to do this. So we're going to have topics. And today we have a topic, and it's a pretty good one, I think. And we're going to have special guests, although we don't have any special guests slated for today. But let's talk a little bit about what's been going on in the shop while everybody tunes in. Hey, it's Steve. And Chris, what have you been doing?
I haven't done anything all week.
That's bullcorn.
No, what did we do? This weekend we shaped some necks.
Mm-hmm.
We made some bodies.
We did.
I put some frets in. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I did lots of fret work. I buffed through some finish.
It can happen. Hey, you know what else? Right behind us is something that we worked on.
Yeah, and I actually did work on this week.
That's right. And this is for Scary Terry.
Mm-hmm.
And this is now, you can't see it, and I'm not going to switch the camera, but this Mosrite style body was one that we made, and because he sent us his Mosrite neck.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something, I don't remember what happened with the body, but something happened, and he was unable to use the body. So he wanted to know if we could build him a body to go with his Mosrite neck and his Mosrite parts.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did. Oh, you're going to move it. Okay.
I'm going to move the guitar just so you can see that it actually has a Mosrite headstock.
Yeah. Well, it's the genuine article.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't exactly a counterfeit. The neck's not counterfeit, but the body is an original. So yeah.
Yeah.
And it's got that cool Johnny Ramone white color, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm digging that. So there's been a lot of good stuff going on in the shop. Lots of good projects. John and Rachel were here yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was fun.
and we grilled for the very first time this spring. And we had mixed grill, and that was good. But so let's get back to the podcast. This is something, like I said, that we're going to be doing every Sunday, and I actually have a secret thing that you don't even know about, but there is something that I want to talk to everybody about. We're going to get to our topic here in just a second, but next week, Brian Nutter from Nutter Guitars in Tennessee, 30 miles outside of Nashville, will be joining us live via satellite. And I'm really looking forward to that. Now, see, what's happening is my extra special thing that I want to tell you about. But we're going to get to that here in a second. Then I'm going to mute my phone. But I'm really anxious to have Brian come on and listen to what he's up to. He's actually at a guitar show this weekend. So for those of you who don't know who Brian Nutter is, we're going to let him tell you. But he's a fellow guitar builder, really cool guy, and he has tons of cool stories. I'm not sure what's off limits. We're gonna get with Brian and make sure. But if you're around next Sunday, make plans to tune in and have your questions for Brian Nutter ready, and he can tell you all about, among other things, Keith Urban and Taylor Swift. And some other, that guy knows everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really looking forward to having Brian on. We met Brian at the NAMM show, and we talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, and we're finally going to be ready to have Brian on the podcast, and I'm excited for that. But I have an all new thing.
I have a quick question.
Oh, go ahead.
Does Brian Nutter know Mickey Free?
This is a great question that for Brian. I don't know who Brian
You
does or
said
doesn't
everybody.
know. Well, why? Yeah, I bet he does. How about this? In all actuality, I'm not going to be one bit surprised if Brian Nutter, if Mickey Free is like hanging out with Brian Nutter right this second. I have no idea.
They're
Not watching this live.
Yeah, that's right.
he's letting Mickey Free drive the tractor right now. Yeah, they're out shooting skeet or something like
or
that.
riding motorbikes.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
And-
Yeah, so Mickey and I were, so Mickey comes by the house. Mickey? Yeah, Mickey Free. Oh, okay.
I think Brian Nutter has a little bit of pin router envy, not because he doesn't have a pin router, but because his jet pin router is a different model than mine, and it doesn't have the extendo up and downo pino.
Right.
He was talking about having to have a machinist build him a special armature for that. And by the way, I have a machinist that you shouldn't call, but that's a story for another day. Actually, there's a brand new thing. I have to get my danger glasses on because I want to read this. This is something that we're going to be doing coming up here pretty quick. And Chris ran out to get us a snack right before the podcast started, and this just happened, and I want to share this with you because this is going to be something that happens very, very soon. So I got a Facebook message from Peter Henriksen, and it reads this. I'm just going to go ahead and read it here, and I hope Peter's okay with that. Guitar playing friends, would you attend an Archtop guitar show featuring the following luthiers, coupled with 32 hours of available clinics and master classes from the following educators? Oh yeah, and 30 or so hours of performances, because it's happening Arvada, September 21st and 22nd. There's going to be guitars by Benedetto, Savannah, USA, Sadowski, and a whole list of others. And it's going to be happening right in our backyard. So I sent a thing to Peter and said, hey, would you like to come on the podcast sometime and talk about your guitar show? And he's like, hell yeah, I want to do that. So I said, well, we're doing one, right now, unless you want to just come over right now. And I'd imagine he's probably not going to be ready to drop everything on a Sunday afternoon and come and do this podcast with us. But I'm looking forward to having Peter come on the podcast. We've got more headphones and we've got more microphones. And I had no idea this was going to happen until it just sort of happened. Like I said, you ran out to get us a treat, and there it was. And I was really stoked about it. So what do you think about that, Chris?
That's cool.
Yeah, that's all you got. That's cool. He's trying to figure out what he wants to call this his guitar show, and he's toying around with the idea of like F-hole something.
What about Hardvada guitar show?
Hardvada F-hole festival? Yeah, I don't. I'm not sure if that would. Yeah. So anyway, so that's coming up, and we got Brian Nutter next week, and lots of other good stuff. I'm having so much fun with the live podcasts, and I hope you guys are too. So, Mrs. Texas Toast, are there any? It looks like
Yes, we actually have several on topic.
Wow,
comments.
on topic.
On
Okay.
topic. The Dirty Knobs, the celluloid guitar pick. Before that, we replayed with bone, which sounds a lot more economical and a lot less morbid.
And a little bit, a little bit risque to be playing with your bone. Yeah, Chris, what's your favorite?
I think you should tell us yours, and then I'll chime in.
Mine?
Yeah.
Well, there's so many, and it's hard to, like what's the most instrumental product that's come along on the electric guitar since the 50s, and I don't know what that's going to be. I mean, it's probably you could say, well, it's the magnetic pickup. Okay, but is that really my favorite thing? The very first magnetic pickup? Probably not. I would say like the humbucking pickup is one of my favorites. But you know what I'm going to say? I actually just came to me just now. My very favorite innovation for guitars is not a guitar at all. Surprise, surprise. It's the precision bass. And I think that is probably one of the most innovative products to come along. It's its own instrument. You know what I mean? So if you can play, if you can play the electric guitar, you can pick up a classical guitar and play it. But if you play the bass as we know it, as Leo Fender, presented to us, you can't just go work an upright bass like it's the same thing. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, Chris and I were in a band, it was a long time ago because we're old, especially Chris. And our drummer was in a band, Paul Galaxy and the Galactics. He was one of the Galactics, Mad Dog, Mike Minnick. And
don't call him Mike.
Don't call him Mike. And they were at they were playing at, let's say, the Ramada Inn with whatever. And just so happens that Poison was on tour and at the same location, and they were just staying at this hotel. This is the way Mad Dog tells it. I can't imagine that the guys in Poison weren't, having like a giant hoopla, but apparently they came down to see Paul Galaxy and the Galactics at the Ramada Inn, and CC DeVille played Paul's Gretsch, because you can pick it up. But if you know anything about Paul Galaxy and the Galactics, the bass player was Chopper, I believe, at the time, and he plays the upright bass. Well, I can't remember. Bobby Dahl isn't going to be able to step in and rock out on an upright bass, and so he didn't. But so I'm going to go ahead and say the Precision bass is my favorite guitar innovation because it's a brand new instrument. It's very similar to something that's classic, but it's brand new. How about you, Chris?
Well, I can't beat that.
Yeah, you can't. I know. The Jazzmaster Trem. Do you want to pass or play?
Well, I'll play. I was just gonna say tremolos in general.
Sure.
Are pretty neat, and I mean, and before, I don't recall ever seeing anything really like that on an acoustic guitar or on a classical guitar.
Yeah.
So
I would imagine there was some pitch shifting stuff back in the really old days.
Possibly, maybe. I don't know.
You could just take the tuner.
You can just take the neck and
Uh-huh.
So yeah, and I like riding the whammy bar. You can tell how nervous I am by how much I'm grabbing onto it. Going.
Chris calls it the talent bar.
Talent bar. Yeah, or the no talent bar. When I get really nervous.
Well, so what's the most innovative? You know what? What did you say? What was your answer?
Tremolo.
Now,
vibrato.
Yeah. So Leo Fender got it wrong, people. It's sort of like bolt-on neck with screws. There's no bolts on a bolt-on neck. And Leo Fender, it's so. I have to look it up when I'm talking about how Leo Fender got that wrong, but Paul Bigsby got it right. Remember that tremolo is shift in volume, and vibrato is a shift in pitch. Is that right? I think that's right.
Sounds right to me.
So if you have a tremolo bar, it
would be hooked up to your volume pod,
or you're calling it something that it's not.
Yeah.
But it's so, Leo Fender was so important that he pretty much changed the lexicon, even though it was not accurate. And that's fine. Who the hell am I to say that Leo Fender got it wrong? I'm some dude. Yeah.
It's like when people use the word motor instead of engine.
Yeah.
And people get all wound up about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How come?
Because it's wrong.
Oh.
What kind of motor you got in that thing? Oh, it's a 350 Chevy. No, it's an engine.
Okay.
Motor's a electrical device.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway.
Far out, man. So we want to hear what you guys think is the most innovative guitar. Wait, let me back up. We want to hear what your favorite guitar innovation is. And it sounds like, actually, it looks like Mrs. Texas Toast she's all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. She's got a bunch for us. What do you got there?
My tail is not bushy.
Oh, yeah, it is.
So Lloyd seems to be very jazzed about the carbon fiber neck reinforcements.
Oh, you know what? That is a good one. We've done a little bit with carbon fiber, and but we even have a saw that says C Fiber on it, and it looks a lot like it says C Fesker,
which is my name.
So Chris is like, "This is my
saw. Don't touch my saw."
Did you invent that?
He invented it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But carbon
Just the
fiber
tape.
is definitely cool. We experimented with carbon fiber in our guitar necks and more particularly in our bass necks. But I took a page from the Warmoth guys who use steel rods in their bass necks, and I got to tell you, I love steel reinforcement, especially in bass necks. But it makes all those dead spots go away, and that's a standard thing that we do in all of our bass necks, that we call the soul pull. And by the way, this is the year of the soul pull.
Let your soul pull.
Yeah, the soul pull is really cool. We've got a bunch of soul pulls going, and if you've never seen one, you can. I play one, so and why wouldn't I? Mine only has 7 frets. That's my favorite guitar. Actually, that's my favorite bass innovation is half fretless.
The frets are still there.
I was thinking
The notes are still there.
that one of my favorite guitar things is the actual precision placement of frets.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And yours is that it has no frets.
Well, but now remember, the reason that it doesn't have any frets there is because I don't ever play past the 7th fret.
Mm-hmm.
So those notes are still there. It's just
Yeah.
that fretboard could be broken glass as far as I'm concerned, because I'm never going there. So yeah, Lloyd, that's a really good one. Carbon fiber is definitely a game changer in our industry and a lot of others. Certainly more than I know about. But yeah, what do you suppose? Like carbon fibers, like race cars and aeronautics and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know carbon fiber. Okay.
All right. Well, Brad Cole
It all has
says-
to do with how much resin versus how much fiber is actually in it.
Okay.
And they grade it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's different levels of carbon fiber, and
Well, check out the big
it
brain
gets-
on Chris.
Well, yeah, because bicycles are all
Woo. Oh, that's right.
bicycles
Yeah.
are all carbon fiber, and that's yeah.
Brad
Used to be
Coley's
my
favorite
thing.
is when Leo dreamed up the telly from making his lap steels.
Well, yeah.
Yep.
Last year, I taught a couple of classes for my friend Jeff LaQuatra, and we talked about the history of the electric guitar. And if you're me, that's fascinating. If you're at Colorado State University and you're a 19-year-old girl sitting in a music appreciation class, it's probably a snooze fest to like watch, some bonehead hippie guy talk
That's
about electric
sexist.
guitars. What's that?
That's sexist.
What's
The 19-year-old girls that signed up for that class are interested in the subject.
What's wrong with being sexy?
yeah? What's wrong with being sexy?
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if you've been to a college lately. All you can see, if you're at the lectern, all you can see is the backs of laptops. Yeah. So that's.
And you have no idea what the screen is showing. They could be watching
I'm almost positive
Huckleberry Hound.
it's them. Yeah, either that or them posting on Facebook how much of a dork I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we talk a little bit about the the history of, well, actually that's all it is for an hour, is me talking about the history of the electric guitar. And yeah, the obviously Fender was, well, I guess we could say instrumental, forgive the pun, but yeah, the leap from the lap steel to the electric guitar was definitely inspired. That was, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was genius, and if it wasn't genius, it was definitely inspired.
Yeah, and pickups in basically acoustic guitars, which rendered them.
I looked up
Barely
who the
playable.
guy was that invented that, and someone who worked at Rickenbacker had the patent for that.
For what?
as the magnetic pickup.
Oh yeah, that horseshoe thing that went over the strings.
Yeah, and then what
Mhm.
came next was the Charlie Christian pickup.
Mhm.
And Charlie Christian was, I guess he was a rock star back in the day. So
Yeah, as
So.
much as he could be with
Mhm.
an amp that was that big. This baby's pushing almost 3 watts.
Dang.
Yeah. Ooh, dude, how big is that speaker? That's a 6.
Woo, loaded.
Yeah.
Okay, what else we got?
Okay,
What-
this is off topic, but it's prompting a question,
I'm-
a personal question
all
for
right.
me. So Thad Shoemaker from Shoemaker Guitar Works.
You know what? You know where that is?
What
He's in Bettendorf, Iowa, and that's
Do you ever let me finish?
no,
Never. Yeah, he said, "What's up from the Quad Cities?" And I wanted to know if you knew him from your farming days.
no, I didn't know him from my farming days. But So that, I think we've talked about this. My grandparents lived in Bettendorf, Iowa, and I would go and visit them, and they had a store in Duck Creek Plaza. I don't even know if that's even still a thing anymore. And then they had another one down the road from there. But yeah, Bettendorf, Iowa. So how's it going there in the Quad Cities? I was born in Rock Island because I'm a rocker. What's next?
Okay, so Lloyd, I'm probably going to get this last name wrong.
Bridges.
Pitonet or Pitonnet. He agrees with Eric Mangel's favorite innovation. Oh no, I'm sorry. Chris Hatton's is the locking tuners.
Locking tuners are really cool. You're a humongous fan of locking tuners.
Yeah, all of a sudden I am, because I used to be all about vintage safety post tuners until I got like one or two sets of.
So what made you switch? Because
tuners.
we used Spurzel locking tuners for a long time, and then we switched. And the guys at Spurzel are really cool. But we made a change, and I can't even really tell you why. But I'm glad we did, because what we're getting from Josh at Hipshot is excellent stuff. Yeah, I love all the stuff that we get from Josh. And if somebody wants Spurzels, we'll still use them. But I really like the kind of modularity that comes with the Hipshot stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. I like all the different knobs that you can get. I like that they're not, except for our friends in Canada, they're not expensive. So you can get a really nice tuner for not a lot of money, and they're cool looking. And I like the open gear, and the locking thing's neat.
The open gear is one of my favorite things too. I think that just really looks classy.
Yeah, I always liked the safety post tuners because you could get rid of the excess string that would stick up, and they worked really well, and they stayed well, they just worked well, and they looked okay. But I like the new stuff's kind of cool, hot roddy kind of stuff.
So it kind of satisfies your vintage. You can get vintage knobs for that kind of sensibility that you're looking for, but you get the performance of the new. And it locks, so that's cool. So you don't have to like sit there and monkey around with strings. And
and changing a string, like one string if it breaks, is super easy. And they're cool. I like them.
I like the Hipshots better than the Planet Waves has that thing where you pull it through and then start twisting it, and it cuts it.
And
if you get the pull it through part wrong, like if you get it stuck, the ball gets stuck somewhere. And it snaps it, and then all of a sudden, then the ball like goes forward that extra quarter of an inch where it was stuck. You're pretty much dinged on it. So I'm not a huge fan of the Planet Waves, and it's all because of operator error on my part. Paul Reed Smith, my very first Paul Reed Smith had really neat locking tuners. They were standard locking tuners with a collar and a slot machined in the collar and in the tuner, and you would line up the slot on the collar and the actual tuner, and then you'd pull the string through, and then you'd kind of twist you'd start to twist the key, and what would happen is the key would turn, but the collar would more or less stay where it was, and it would pinch the string against the side of the tuner, unlike the Spurzel, which they probably had a patent on at the time that they couldn't use those. Paul Reed Smith has a different style locking tuner now. I don't even know how it works, but yeah.
Cool.
And I wanted to give you, there's confirmation that Duck Creek is in fact still there.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then Thad also says that the Les Pulverizer was by far the most innovative guitar invention ever.
Do you know what the Les Pulverizer is?
No.
I want to say, and I'm taking a stab here, so correct me when I'm wrong, not if I'm wrong. That's Les Paul's like super duper recording thing, wasn't it? That had like 87 knobs and switches and doodads, and it's a guitar, but it also had all kinds of other stuff built into it to do whatever crazy crap Les Paul was doing at the time. And he was into like some pretty wacky stuff. That guy he had like a I want to say someone told me one time that Les Paul had one of the early patents for sonar. And had 4-track and 8-track mixing was one of his big things.
And he came up with that.
And he would record stuff and then broadcast it to his car and drive around the neighborhood and see what it would sound like in his car. And because it's one thing if it sounds great on a great big speaker at home, but if it doesn't sound cool in your car, then Now, and again, this could all be bullcrap. This is just stories that I remember people telling me.
I read a story, I think it was from Deke Dickerson, who went to one of the Les Paul guitar sales after he died, and they were and I guess virtually every single guitar Les Paul owned was jacked up somehow because Les couldn't leave them alone.
Yeah, he wanted to have like a custom something. Yeah,
so that's cool.
Remy R said, bridge fine tuners for Tone Pro style bridges. Had these on a Les Paul, Les Paul Custom. Made the world of difference live.
It absolutely does.
Also, the tuning pegs had fold-out string winders, which just sounds like more stuff to break.
They were really cool. I remember those. What my guitar teacher had those on like a 335 or something. And it was like this flick out thing that they were metal, and they were on a metal tuning key, and it would flip out, and it would be like a little crank. And that's right. I forgot all about those. Those are really cool.
I've never seen those.
They're pretty neat. And then the like I know BB King's Lucille had fine tuners on the stop tail piece to kind of tug them a little bit.
I had a guitar that had those. They were pretty neat.
And if you had a Kahler, you had that. Of course, a Floyd too.
Yeah, and they all have those.
I'm kind of surprised no one said Floyd yet, but maybe they have them. We just don't know.
Well, I'm trying not to make sure I don't skip anybody.
It's hard because there's a lot of people watching. Thanks everybody for tuning
a lot
in.
Of side conversations going.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I'm not bitching about that.
This is one of those
for myself.
This is one of those things where like the side conversations, I'm just getting used to that kind of happens, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to, talk about the side conversation, because me, I got a great big fat mouth, and anything that I can stick my face in, I will. So that's for Steve. Softball for Steve right there. What else we got there?
Weenie roller.
Hey, you know what? I did some weenie rolling this weekend. I glued on Dylan's. Can you grab it? Dylan's Archtop onto
hang on.
His exploder. This was pretty cool. We posted this on Instagram and Facebook the other day and got a lot of cool comments on it. Dylan, of course, from Flipside Music. And he's got a guitar that we are building for him because he's a cool guy. And it's right. Yeah, there it is. It's a mahogany back. And he couldn't decide if he wanted fabric or something. And I'm like, dude, you know what's cool? Sometimes is not fabric. And so this is what we came up with. So this is actually roasted swamp ash on a mahogany back. And it's going to get a translucent finish. And he's leaning towards purple. So everyone's like, you should make that, just do clear on that. And I'm like, the roasted swamp ash looks okay with just a clear on it, but this level of cool does not translate into with finish on it, but
no, it
does take color really, really well. And surprisingly enough, even colors that are lighter than this wood, it's super excellent. So the Mac Guitar Murphy guitar that we did has a tobacco burst, and it actually has an amber tone that kind of brings back this coolness here. When you just spray this or wipe on clear on it, it just gets brown, and it's neat, but it's not as neat as it can be.
Yeah, and it's not dark enough brown to be cool. It's not. Yeah, it's sort of baby shit brown.
You can say baby shit. Let's talk a little bit about that. You know why you can say baby shit? Because we are entirely viewer funded. And thank you to all of our Patreon members who make our channel possible. One of the things that happened in the last couple of weeks is I posted a video and there were some commercials before the video. Now, do you know why there were commercials before the video?
I do, because you told me. Yeah, but you can tell everybody else.
So we are still completely demonetized and completely viewer funded. But if we use a song from a band, say in this case it was the Electric Boogie Dogs, and all of their stuff is copywritten material, and it's okay, I have permission to use that, but they monetize that video so that the Electric Boogie Dogs can get their tenth of a cent for every zillion views that video gets. So if you ever see a commercial on the Texas Toast page channel, whatever, it's because there's some copywritten material that I do not own, but I have permission to use. So it is likely that it's going to happen. What can you do?
So the Rondo says very innovative was also the sustain block in hollow bodies.
The sustain block is cool, and not just something from hollow bodies. The first time I heard about that was the Yamaha SG, was it 2000? Had a great big brass block in the body that the Tune-O-Matic style bridge was mounted into, and then as I peeled the layers of that onion back, I started to realize where that kind of thing was made its presence known, and yeah, archtops and some of that stuff. It's a pretty cool thing. Or he might also be talking about just the big chunk of mahogany down the center of like the 335. But maybe not. I'm not sure. What do you think, Chris? Lay it on me. Hit me, man. I have to drink while you're. Come on.
I don't know. I don't know that much about hollow body guitars or semi-hollow bodies.
Rondo, keep us in the loop with what exactly it is you're talking about, because there's two different things that you might be referring to. What do you think of the is it the Yamaha? Matt, no, not Matt's big fat one. The Yamaha SG 2000. That's the Carlos Santana one.
Yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with that guitar, but not as familiar as I am with some other.
They're
Yamaha
cool.
stuff.
They're really cool guitars, and it's funny that the Yamaha SG is something that takes so many body shapes, but the Gibson SG is pretty much that one.
Yeah,
I can't explain it.
It's super guitar.
Is it? It's not solid guitar.
Yamaha super guitar.
Oh,
super bass.
Excelente.
Yeah. Super axe.
Super duper.
Super acoustic.
Weenie roller.
Who's weenie rolling?
No, it's drinking time.
Oh, geez. All right, come on, Chris.
Oh, I need another one.
There's one right here.
Stacked up, man.
I got one. Jeez.
Curse, it's yours.
Driddle, am I saying that right?
I think so. He's always tunes into the.
I saw him on the.
That's right.
On the flip sides.
Mrs. Texas Toast and I were watching on two different machines on the flip side live broadcast the other day.
Who's Friday Night Kid? You know me. You just looked at me earlier today. So Driddle says the pickup, and I was going to say that earlier because I think your title of this might be a little misleading.
Probably.
What's your favorite guitar innovation? The introduction of electricity to the instrument. But you, I think, are like your favorite electric guitar innovation seems to be what you're going around on.
Well, that's because that's what we know the most about. Yeah, I mean, you could say that steel strings are an innovation that you certainly couldn't amplify the electric guitar in the way that we do over and over and over again today without steel strings. Some people might say stainless frets. That's a fairly new innovation, but very, very popular. Some people might say hide glue.
I almost said the amplifier and amplifier technology.
Yeah.
Because you can play almost any guitar through certain amps. And
that'd be another great podcast. What's your favorite amp?
Yeah.
That would be another great one to talk about with Brian Nutter, who will be joining us next week. Apparently, Brian has the Marshall JCM 800 schematic tattooed on his body somewhere.
It's big.
And it's big.
The tattoo, not his body.
Yeah, he's not. He's svelte.
Yeah,
he'll kick your ass. Not mine. No,
it's a good thing he's not here in town.
I know, right?
Brian is put that to the test.
He's so cool. He's a great guy to have beers with and talk guitars with, and that guy knows everything and knows everybody. So we're looking forward to having Brian Nutter on next week. Make sure to tune in. For those of you who are just joining us now, Brian Nutter will be on the live podcast next week.
So I have an off-topic question.
Okay.
What do you think smells worse? Hide glue or that bottle of glue that sat in the window in the sun for like 6 years? Oh
boy. Hide glue doesn't really have an odor like that.
Is there like a fish glue or something like that?
Yeah, fish glue is pretty nasty. But that veneer, that cold pressed veneer glue that got a bacteria in it smelled like turd. It smelled like someone took a big dump in that bottle. And It worked, but
after like some rancid Taco Bell out of
It
the
was
dumpster or something. Yeah.
yeah. It was really bad.
The grossest part of that was after it was all glued up, like a week later, I
Could you still smell it?
went. Well, no, I started to pin route something on the top,
And
and I just skimmed the top, and I hit that layer of
And now
glue,
you cooked
and
it.
it went back. Yeah, and it was like, ugh, it stinks again.
So I was
Still stinks even when it's dry.
I was
you
doing some
cooked it.
veneer work on a body, and I had that glue, and I had no idea it had horse shit in it. But so it was early in the morning, and we got it all out of the way. I'm weenie rolling it out. God, it smelled like dirty ass. And
It did.
so that for the rest of the day, whenever anybody would come over, and there was a bunch of people, I'm like, hey, you smell that glue? It smells awful. And to the guy, every single person put their nose right in it. And, oh, yeah, you're right. It
right
does.
in it,
Yeah,
in it,
right
in
in
there.
there.
Yeah.
Monkey took a big whiff.
Even told him
bet
it
he
was going to
tasted
smell
it.
bad.
I told him it smelled like,
Yeah. Yo, does it smell good? No.
no, it smells like dirty butthole.
Okay. Ugh. Good
People are
job.
having Sunday fun day.
Oh,
roller.
weenie rolling.
Somebody's making fun of us for drinking Coors Light.
Well, it is like
Again?
fucking near water.
Yeah.
But that's the reason that we drink it, so we can drink all day. And you can't drink all day if you don't
You
start
can't.
early.
Yeah, you can't drink the high test beer all day
No.
long. Everybody,
And once again,
And we
we-
need to keep
how about this?
hydrated. We're at altitude.
you can't drink the high test beer all day long and use power tools effectively.
Right. and we don't even drink all day long. We
No,
had,
Not
yeah,
anymore.
I had
Yeah.
none before we started the podcast.
Yeah,
so,
me too.
Yeah.
Me too. So
Mhm.
Coors Light is it's not the greatest beer in the world, we know,
hmm
but it's sessionable.
And sometimes it's not the worst beer you could have.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can do worse.
it's cold, and it's wet.
Yeah.
3 of my favorite things.
Mm-hmm. Which
Cold
is
and wet.
Cold, cold, and wet.
hmm
Okay.
one of my favorite things is Jack in the Box tacos.
Uh-huh.
So what else we got,
So
Carrie?
we
I
have-
like my beer like I like my women.
Cold, cold, and wet.
Cold and wet with a little hair on their arms.
What?
Well, Chris Hatton says the gain knob, because driving an amp purely by volume was difficult in some rooms. Preamp is super important in the grand scheme of things.
You know what? That is a great one. Because if you ever played, if your first amp was a Fender Super, your mom was always telling you to turn that shit down, and your master volume was the same as your regular volume. And to get that sumbitch to break up, to get how many Fender Supers, 50 watts to 410s?
Yeah.
It is a fucking monster. I love those amps. Do you have a Super?
No,
How come?
I don't have a Super.
Okay. What do
Sorry.
have you had a Super before?
No, I've had stuff similar to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
A lot of the Fender amps aren't all that different. It's more about, well, this is a 112, this is a 210, this is a 410, this is a
Yeah, this is a
215, but
head.
it's kind of the same basic
This has reverb. This
circuit.
doesn't. Okay.
Yeah. So supers are close to super reverbs are close to Bandmaster reverbs, which I've owned several of.
One of my favorite amps of all time was a Fender
Yeah.
Bandmaster reverb, and it was a silver face too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
it
yeah,
wasn't
because they
cool.
never made a blackface Bandmaster reverb.
Oh, okay. They were
They
all
were
just
just
regular
Bandmasters,
Bandmasters.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
right.
And those two, they shouldn't have even called that second incarnation a Bandmaster
Why?
because it was nothing like.
Oh, okay.
It was a totally different amp.
Okay. I love it.
Yeah. Either way.
I think that you're right. Though the gain knob makes a lot of sense, especially at bedroom volume. Now, having said that, there's a lot of cool stuff that was recorded and done with amps with no preamp. And
Mhm.
and there's something about that tube gain saturation or that power tube saturation that's extra cool. Unfortunately, if you have a twin reverb, you're killing people before you get to the
Well, and
radical Ted Nugent kind of
It
volume.
never does that. Yeah.
That's-
Yeah. You need 5 or 6 of them.
Uh-huh.
And then you start shaking the room, and then I
One
think
of
you
the-
get something from
One of the
it.
best stories that I ever heard about Fender amps and the volume that they produce was the one that you told me about, the guy from Blue Cheer who was in the Fender
yeah.
4, Fender 5.
Yeah, it was in the Fender 4.
You know
Randy
what?
Holden.
I want to hear that story again, and I think everybody else does too. Chris.
Okay. I'm trying to think where to start. So there was this, I'm really into surf music, and there was this guy, Randy Holden, who played in a band in the 60s called the Fender 4, and they did Everybody Up and some
It's
other
really
some
cool
really
stuff. If
cool
you're into
stuff.
surf,
And
check it
a
out.
little more, definitely more aggressive, especially for, early 60s stuff than, the
So it wasn't-
Surfaris and stuff like that.
So it wasn't a big surprise when he later went on to be in Blue Cheer.
Blue
right?
Cheer, yeah, and was all about volume and all about all this other stuff. So they the surf community kind of dug him up a couple years ago and wanted him to come and play this big surf festival that they put on every year. And Randy said, "Man, I haven't played surf in a long time. That sounds fun. Yeah, I'll do that." And so he said, "But I don't really have an amp that." That'll do it. I got a Marshall and this and that. And so he said, well, we'll loan you, we'll loan you an amp. You can borrow an amp. And so they took two early brown face Fender Showman, dual Showman, 215s, over to Randy's house to let him pick which one he wanted to use.
Which one's
and Randy immediately plugged them both in, daisy chained them, and said, "I'll use both."
Yeah, these will work just fine.
Yeah, and he did, and I was at the show, and it was amazing how awesome it sounded. Yeah, two 215 cabinets, 100-watt Showman heads,
sweet,
all the way up.
Nah.
And he played he comes walking out. I didn't even know what he looked like anymore. And there were guys kind of wandering around. And
was he the guitar player on like the Summertime Blues video and that stuff?
I think he was. Okay. Yeah. But maybe not. He wasn't in that band for very long either.
Oh, okay.
But I was like, is that Randy Holden? That must be Randy Holden. And none of them were Randy Holden. It was all his buddies walking around. Yeah. And he comes out, and man, he's got long hair, and he's got like a leather, like shirt on, and he's got this clear acrylic Strat, and it's like down to his knees. And I'm like, this is gonna. Oh, and he's got a headband on.
Of course.
And I was like, this is gonna suck. And he starts playing, and it was awesome.
It was
so thing, cool. Yeah, the whole room just levitated, and everybody went, "Yeah, all right!" Bunch of surf geeks.
So after this podcast, everybody go check out Fender 4.
Yeah.
What's the song that they have like a monster?
Margaya.
Yeah.
Is and Everybody Up.
They're pretty similar songs, as I read.
Yeah,
but they're cool as shit.
They probably did like 3 or 4 songs that are cool. Yeah, and I think there's even some footage from that day. It was the Surf Guitar 101 convention. I think it was number 18 or 19.
Sweet. You go to that every year, don't you?
I've been to several.
Oh, okay.
I've played a couple of them, but I haven't been to all of them. So usually at the end of the summer.
Cool. Carrie Ann, what's next? We get off topic, and we'd like to talk and tell stories about some of the stuff that makes us think about
Randy Holden.
That was I love that story because I can imagine it.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Now you're telling a story about telling stories.
Bitchin'.
Yeah, that's true.
I really love the sound of your voice.
Oh, boy, do I. And that's why I have these headphones.
So Joe Rhodes says stainless steel frets and 5-way or split coil switches instead of push-pull pots. Did I just say pull pot?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that, the Cambodian dictator is not
it's not your favorite guitar innovation.
Guitar innovation, yeah. Stainless frets. That's one of those things that is kind of everybody's real into that right now, and I'm not gonna say it doesn't make sense. I don't think that regular nickel steel frets are going anywhere, but stainless frets actually, as I'm going to begrudgingly say, they make sense. Of all the weird stuff that people are into now, stainless frets actually have a legitimate purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, there are some things that are buzzwords on guitar internet forums, and stainless steel frets, I think, are one of them. Of a lot of those things, stainless frets actually do make sense, especially for people who play a lot and wear out their fretboard. It's not going to happen to me because I don't play enough, but
yeah, at one time I had a guitar that I played predominantly and had it for quite a while now. I changed guitars a lot, and eventually I got a little bit of wear, but not much. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Some people play with a little more finesse, and some people like to wrestle it. That's cool.
Well, and I've heard of guys that can run through a set of frets in a year. I'm like, wow, man.
I guess Eddie Van Halen can like do it in an afternoon. But
well, he's sitting there sawing on them.
Yeah.
So,
What else?
Bob quickly says, my real favorite thing, adding gain stages to the beginning of the Marshall JMP design Soldano.
Ooh, yeah, Soldano. That dude worked for lots of people before he kind of struck out on his own. I want to say that there were the those Fender amps with the like snakeskin colored Tolex were Soldano amps, or Soldano designed, or did he work for Yamaha? I can't remember. Bob, if you know, tell us.
Opossum glue. There you go.
Opossum?
Yeah, they're talking about hide glue and opossum glue rocks.
Happy Ad says headstock truss adjustment rather than heel.
See, now I like heel adjustment on bolt neck guitars. Not because it's easy, but because it leaves me lots of room for my logo.
Just from a purely aesthetic point, it looks cleaner. I do like the ability to do it on.
Absolutely.
But I also understand that sometimes it's like, well, I should probably make sure that that's really what it is before I just go.
That brings us to another great innovation, and that's
the truss rod.
And that's the two-way truss rod. That's the truss rod that actually is something that's designed to move rather than something that's kind of okay at manipulating the neck if it's in fighting the string tension. I did a thing at a local guitar show. It was a 45-minute presentation on nothing but truss rods. It was the boringest fucking thing anyone's ever sat through, except for me. And I talked because we've gone through every truss rod that there was, and we finally settled on the truss rods that we use today. And those things move stuff faster and stay where they are and keep the neck stable through all weather conditions better than any other truss rod we've ever used.
Yeah, and they're thin and small and simple. And we had some great big giant
with this
encased in aluminum.
Yeah, the Martin style truss rods are really I don't know. The best part, we did a video where I took that truss rod and we cranked it. We wrecked one. We tried to kill one, and it was still actually usable, but it had bent the metal because I think we turned the rod, or we turned the active rod like 10 times. Way more than you would ever do it on a guitar. If your guitar needs 10 rotations, because it had moved it like 7 or 8 inches of remember that?
Yeah, because the two pieces are together, and by the end it was
ridiculous. And they're so tough, and they just work.
Why don't you guys tell Travis Stone what kind of truss rods you guys use?
We get truss rods from our good friend John at Bitterroot Guitars. Check out John at Bitterroot Guitars and tell him Matt at Texas Toast sent you, and you will not be disappointed.
Here's an off-topic question that got good question. From Stephen Mentha, why are inline 6 headstocks usually flat while 3+3 are angled?
I think it's because Leo Fender wanted to make necks as cheap as he possibly could. And that meant using 4/4 lumber. And you have to have some break angle off of that nut. And it's the easiest way to do it. Now, you could make the argument that he did it that way because Paul Bigsby told him to. But I don't know. Paul Bigsby's headstocks might have had an angle. They might not have been flat.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if
I can't remember.
I don't know.
So the real advantage to using the 4/4 lumber and making the headstock kind of scooped out like Fender style is it's unbelievably strong. We all know that every so often when you look at them wrong and hold your mouth wrong, Gibson necks can break at that little snappy offy part. Part of that is because the headstock angle's almost 17 degrees on some necks, and it doesn't need to be anywhere near that. And there's people on internet forums who are like, oh, you got to have this much neck angle or it's not going to bullshit. We settled on 7 degree. Hey now. And it's funny because one of my big influences, one of my mentors is Dan Armstrong, who also went with 7 degree. But we settled on 7 degree not because of Dan Armstrong. We just thought, let's try it, and it just so happened that was the one Dan Armstrong had come up with in 1968, way before we started doing any of this stuff. I bought Dan Armstrong's guitars. He didn't buy mine. So yeah, I'm a punk. I'm a stepchild.
We did on my double neck. We did 3 on a side, and we did a 2.5.
It was hardly any.
Yeah, because just because of the wood that we had to use, and it worked okay too.
But if you've ever seen Stevie Ray whip that Stratocaster around and then drop it and pick it up by the strings and stuff like that, you could never get away with on like a standard Gibson.
So you could do a 3 and a 3 on a flat.
Sure, absolutely you could. And you could do a 6 on a side with an angle too.
Yeah, there's actually a Fernandez neck right in back of you.
That's right.
That's that way. So I think for the most part, for a long time, it was just tradition.
Yeah.
6 on a side is a Fender style neck, and 3 and 3 is a Gibson style neck.
Yep.
And that's the way you do it.
And they both work. Weenie roller.
Drink.
And I have to say, I think one of my least favorite things on new cheap guitars is really shoddy looking scarf joints.
I used to be a bigger fan of scarf joints than I am because of you save a little bit of wood. But just like
sucky
scarf joint,
mismatched, bad colored wood, and just big long. It's like, oh man, and
usually what happens is a scarf joint, there's quite a bit of angle, because if you have a real shallow scarf joint, then it's like it comes back to the 5th fret almost. So
and I've seen that too. Where
we've done it.
It's and it's fine if you're going to paint the neck, but man, it looks bad if it's finished natural.
Yeah, it looks dippy. Yeah,
it just looks really cheap, I think. So
I like 1-piece. Or 2-piece necks, or 3-piece necks, or 1-piece necks, but I don't like them to have a great big headstock angle.
Yeah.
What's
off topic again, but I can't.
Perfect. I love off topic.
I can't resist. Republico Joshua Balbus. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Have you guys ever finished a flying V with a princess cloth design? And he's asking because his baby girl asked him to make one, and I thought you could tell him about your Grow Into guitar.
Oh, the Grow Into guitar. Yeah, that had never actually materialized. But what's the princess? But what's the princess pattern?
Material. Like,
what is that?
Like Elsa or something,
Oh, okay. Yeah. So,
but that just made me think of the Grow Into guitar that you made.
All right. So let me tell you a little bit about what Mrs. Texas Toast is talking about. First of all, if you haven't made your daughter a flying V with princess pattern fabric on it, what are you doing?
Get on it.
Start making that.
Yeah. Turn the computer off now. Go to the garage.
Go to Joanne Fabric
and gluing up wood. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So one of the things that I monkeyed around with was it was a bolt neck guitar that the bridge location was the same. It had one pickup in the bridge position, and the necks, it had 2 necks of different scale lengths that were set to work with the exact same bridge position. So it took a little bit of work to get it to where you could bolt one neck on and then bolt the other neck, and then pull it off and bolt the other neck on, and you not have to re-intonate the saddles. And you might have needed to, tweak it a little bit. But the point I'm trying to make is you could have a short scale guitar for a little kid, and then as they mature, you could increase the scale length of the guitar as the kid grows up a little bit. All with having, a standard bolt neck. Now, the key is to make the heel has to be the same for each neck. So I do not advise you to use a wedge shape heel like a Fender, even though it's, there's a little bit of an angle in there. Make the heel straight. That way, you don't have to have like a super wide nut for the little bitty kid neck. The problem with this is you're designing and fabricating a custom guitar for a 5-year-old kid who may or may not be the next Charlie Sexton. You know what I mean? So you got a lot of it did not turn out to be something that was marketable, because 5-year-old kids generally get, toy guitars, and then if they stick with it, then they get a real guitar. But it's a cool way to do a thing. And if you're going to build a Flying V for your daughter with princess stuff on it, which you should do, consider making 2 necks, because why not?
Lawrence Forte says the roller nut roller bridge.
I remember. Do you remember the Strat Plus?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
So
that was right about the time that I started getting into
the Strat Plus was an awesome guitar, and it had a roller nut. It's one of my favorite things, especially with locking tuners and the roller nut. Great thing. The one that they had in the late 80s is a little different than the one that they came out with after that.
Mm-hmm.
It was about the same width as a lock nut, and I actually have one of those on the guitar that Bruce Clay built for me. I think it's a Wilkinson locking. It was whatever was on the Strat Plus and Spurzel tuners, which were also on the Strat Plus.
Demantoid says Mrs. Texas Toast rocks.
Like, I don't know that.
It's not really a question.
Well, I just thought it was worth verbalizing.
Can everybody hear Mrs. Texas Toast this week? It's we're still kind of toying around with all the new audio gear that all the Patreon members have made possible for us. And Mrs. Texas Toast, we can hear her just fine in the headphones. We just want to make sure that y'all can too. So
well, if they know that I rock,
I guess that's
then
true.
It must be coming through the microphone.
Yeah.
I had one and I lost it from Brad Coley. Give me a second.
Brad Coley. Chris, what do you think about the Archtop Show? It seems like a fairly limiting thing, but I'm anxious to see what they come up with.
Yeah. It sounds cool. I like guitars.
Yeah, I know. So be watching, because we're going to be talking a little bit about that show coming up right in our backyard here in Arvada, the F Hole show, or whatever it's going to be called. We're going to have the promoter of that show on, and remember, next Sunday we're going to have Brian Nutter on, which I'm really looking forward to. We should just go to the Summer NAMM show just so we can fiddle fart around with Brian Nutter and goof off it. We don't even have to go to the NAMM show. Actually, why even bother going to the NAMM show?
Let's just go see Brian.
We should just go see Brian.
Yeah, we can hang out on the farm.
And then we don't have to do it in the summertime when it's wicked hot.
Mickey Free will come over. Drive the tractor.
You don't know who's coming over. Yeah,
that sounds.
Taylor Swift will probably be.
We don't know. Swift. Yeah.
So Brian Coley says he believes it's the best innovation. I'm sorry, my Jersey mouth is going to have a hard time saying this.
Oh, excellent.
Okay. I believe the best innovation as far as solid bodies, which y'all do.
Yeah.
Did I say that right? Y'all?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the humbucker. It really opened up the voice of the solid and semi-hollow.
And bucks the hum.
Yep.
Buck that hum.
The patent applied for humbucker, man, that's you would be hard pressed to come up with something better. I mean, I wouldn't be, because the Fender P bass but yeah, the humbucker was definitely a game changer. When did Fender go? They had a Seth Lover thing, didn't they? That they're like, we can't use a PAF, but we had
so they called it the wide range humbucker.
That was one of the Fender and Gibson would like fight back and forth and come out with one guy would come out with something cool. You guys already know this, but yeah, so they came out with 10 years later,
probably. I think it was definitely the CBS era. I'm trying to think of the oldest telly that I've ever seen with a PAF.
Or Deluxe had the humbucking in the
neck. So it was probably the late 70s or late 60s, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'm not actually a huge fan of humbuckers. They're okay, but it's not my favorite style of pickup.
Would you say that you can't get a surf tone?
You can't get a surf tone with a humbucker. Yeah. So although if I'm all hopped up on back pills, I can get a surf tone out of anything.
So it looks like we're coming to a close here for this podcast, but I
don't
want to leave anybody hanging. So, Mrs. Texas Toast, are there a bunch more questions that we need to answer? Excuse me.
There's one more question that I think
Lay
is
it on me.
interesting. Where the hell is it?
One says saliva for
Salvia.
so
you
not
don't know.
saliva.
That's not. You're not
That's
into
not
that
my
stuff.
thing.
Ever use Scott Estes? Ever used metal binding material?
Metal binding material. Scott, have you sent me this before in a video? I have never like you were talking about copper once, as I recall. I've never done that, but it sounds intriguing. Tell me more. Tell me more.
Sounds difficult.
Did you get very far?
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Did you pee on the floor?
I was in the back of the car. Yeah. Yeah. I've never used metal binding, but yeah, why not? Mrs. Texas Toast, do you have anything more? How many people have tuned in to the?
Currently, there are 38 viewers.
All right. So you guys, not very many people watch the live podcast, but I think that's going to change. We're growing into this, and it started out as being this kind of this ruckus, drunken ruckus, and now we've toned it way back. And I think we need to be somewhere in the middle of smooth weatherman voices and motherfucking ruckus. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Dementoid is upset because he just got here. He came late to the party.
Well, there's an hour worth of material.
At least you made last call.
At least you made the last call. And by the way, so I guess what I'm getting at, everybody, is the more of these videos that you share with people, the more they'll grow. We're going to continue to do these every Sunday. Because
there's a request for you to play that guitar fast and loud, even though it doesn't have a pickup.
Well, it has a pickup.
One of those guitars.
It doesn't have any strings.
Oh,
yeah. So one of the things we're going to do is every one of these deals we're going to have a little bit of a project or maybe a complete guitar. And this week it is this Mosrite that's in the back. If you're just tuning in, Scary Terry sent us in the neck, which is a legitimate Mosrite neck. But something happened to the body, and we had to make him a new body to work with his neck.
He dropped it, and it broke.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, broke into like 4 or 5 pieces.
Oh man! Oh, Semi Mosley.
Yeah.
So so share these videos with your friends, and if you're watching later on, I think this is where these videos really excel. Is the next day, Monday morning, when you're supposed to be working. This is the thing that you put this on and you kind of zone out. You do whatever you do at your job, whatever it is that you do, whatever it is. I don't care. Carrie Ann, are there any more questions that we can answer before we wrap this one up?
Well, just.
I know I don't. That's why.
No, just.
Well, let me get my danger glasses. Let me see what I can get here. Reckless is the only way. Hey, man, you can't move that stuff around.
I can do what I want.
Do what I want. So, guys, thank you for tuning in to our weekly live podcast. And remember, we are entirely viewer funded. So if you appreciate stuff like this, you might want to go over to our Patreon page and consider becoming a member. I'd like to thank everybody who's a Patreon member right now. You guys have really made all the difference in the world and helped us out immeasurably. So thank you to all of our Patreon members. And like I say, if you're thinking about maybe if you dig stuff like this and you want to donate $1 a month, Patreon is a great way to help us out. If you can't do Patreon, like I say, we totally understand. But share this video as many places as you possibly can, because that helps us grow the channel. What do we got coming up this week? I happen to know there's another exciting video in the 1967 EBO Resto Mod coming up, and another one of the What's on My Workbench videos this week. It's going to be doing some template making. So you got anything else that's new and exciting that's coming up this week or next week?
No, we're going to do some paint. We're going to assemble some guitars. We might have something new to put up on the in the background next week.
Guarantee you we'll have something cool.
Yeah. There's so many guitars being built.
Absolutely.
An exciting week coming up too.
Do you?
Stabbing people and sucking blood.
Yikes. So remember, next week, in addition to stabbing people and sucking blood for Mrs. Texas Toast, Brian Nutter is going to be joining us. We're not quite sure how that's going to work yet, but it's going to be live via satellite.
Cool. Yeah.
Brian's going to be at his shop, and we're going to be here at our shop.
That may have to be a little longer one too.
You know what? It's probably a good idea to go ahead and schedule.
Yeah, you just have to let that organically.
We're just going to let that one go.
And I think once we get going with Brian, it's just going to be free for all nut show, because that's
Nutter.
Yeah.
That guy's totally cool, and I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be neat.
So thanks everybody for tuning in. If you just now joining us, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, but make sure to tune in next time. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, make sure to hit the like button, and apparently you have to click the little bell, because subscribing isn't enough. Yeah. I don't know what the YouTube algorithm is, but yeah, you have to hit subscribe 2 times.
Yeah, ring the bell, and then you got to do a little shake, a little shimmy, and then
So this is Matt at Texas Toast.
This is Chris,
reminding you that life is short. You might as well have a cool guitar. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Weenie roller.